Hello and welcome to Your Business, Your Wealth. My name is Paul Adams. I'm joined by Corey Shepard. And a little known fact many people do not know about Corey Shepard is that he's my business partner. No good.
I mean, you're right. No, you're right. Statistically speaking, like a lot of people don't even know anything about me. So it really is a little known fact.
They don't even know I exist, most people that know you.
Paul, that is such a great intro to this article because you're actually, you got to be asking the right question and looking at the right sample set and thinking past the first statement. Just like, if I said, picture a woman in her mid-50s, likes knitting and cats, and kind of quiet and introverted. Mm-hmm. Is she a librarian or a salesperson? What's the right answer? Well, the right answer
toward librarian.
I mean, you would think, because I'm talking about some demographic stereotype, except if you think about the pot odds, like there are way more salespeople in the country than librarians. So statistically speaking, you're better off guessing that she's a salesperson, right? So you've got to think past those initial preconceived notions. And my notion of everyone knowing who I am and being famous, you're absolutely right. They don't even know who I am, let alone I'm your business partner.
I don't know. So I prefer to think everybody knows who I am through Corey. I just walk in a new place. I'm like, do you know Corey Shepard? And they're like, no. I'm like, I'm his business partner. And anyway, he said send him the check for dinner tonight. So we just...
Right. Yeah. Classic.
Hasn't worked yet. I keep trying.
So the article, the millennials, they're just trying to get on more headlines every day. Like that's with a whole generation. And being technically the millennial generation, although I feel like I'm an elder millennial, I try to
like a
opt
statesman.
out of that tag.
You're a millennial statesman. Yeah. I think that would be fair.
Stateshuman. Stateshuman is what we prefer. Yeah. So the title of this article, Millennials Want to Retire at 50. How to afford it is another matter.
I thought about throwing my phone across the room when I read the title. Duh. People, if you read any news at all, people struggle to have enough money to retire at 65 or 67 when Social Security starts. And that's with Social Security coming in. People with union pensions have a difficult time saving enough money to retire. That's to retire at 65 or 70. So I want to shortcut that by nearly 20 years. And, affording it could be another. Now, I must say something else here. Sorry, Corey. I wasn't prepared for the rant I have in me for this article. It's just flowing out. But, we've talked about on the podcast before about this idea of affording something. Mm-hmm. That if you are saying I can't afford or can't afford, you're already in the wrong game.
You're making it about their game. There's a great section in my book, Cape Not Required, about me buying my first car and how the salesperson got me into what can I afford each month. And that made it their game. So it's the financial industry's game when we're talking about what we can afford.
Yep. So absolutely. If you say, I can't afford that, even with your friends, like, we're all going to Hawaii. I can't afford that. Because the second you say that, people try to overcome that. Well, what about this? Or if you do that, if you just pause and say, I would do that, but it would break strategy for me. And I think you'll find in the characters of this article, I mean, they're real people, but they're characters in the article. I think what you'll find is that if they took the approach of I have a strategy and I don't want to break strategy, they'd probably be more successful than being in the afford paradigm. Mm-hmm. All right, let's jump back at it.
And that's what this article. So this is a young doctor, an anesthesiologist in Atlanta, Dr. Patel, who's 33.
I've been practicing saying it, so let me say it. Right. She's a cardiothoracic anesthesiologist. I just say that for my No. That's how my mom. That's how my mom says it. I just say that for her so she can hear that. We're gonna clip this and just send it to her. And she'll hate it.
Maybe she'll take you to Chick-fil-A and thanks for mentioning her at this
Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is what my wife called Chick-fil-A for over 20 years. And my wife was riding with her and chuckled and said, "You mean Chick-fil-A?" And she goes, "No, it says Chick-fil-A." And my wife turned off the highway, went in the parking lot, and pointed at the sign. Oh, no. Chick-fil-A. And my mom went, "I've been saying that wrong ever since they opened." So
love it. So great. So she wants to walk away from work at 50. And
now she's 33 now.
Yeah.
And for people that aren't as familiar with advanced medical degrees, how long ago did she probably get out of school?
I mean, at 33, she's probably in her first few years of practice.
Yeah, I was going to say, it says she's been at the employer she's at for 2 years, but I think there's probably a year before that if she got out when she was 30. So she spent a decade paying to effectively work and learn. And now she's earning. Right. And what would you guess she's making as a cardiothoracic anesthesiologist?
I would say somewhere in the north of 3 to 4, depending on the contract, how much she's working, different pieces. But so let's say 350 just for the heck of it.
Got it. And so she's got this aim. I want to be able to retire at 50.
Yep. But here's the article saying, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, because one of her aims is, I want to get to a point I don't have to work for money anymore, and I can work for pleasure. So she's okay with working.
But she contributes to a 401k and a Roth, invests in stocks and a brokerage account, maxes out her HSA. All good things. She's also paying off a $250,000 loan for medical school and paying for her wedding in December. So 2 things. One, sounds like whatever the wedding cost is big enough that it's making it harder to save for the future. So it's like, no problem, but you just want to spend a lot on a wedding now more than you want to retire at 50. Like there's no problem.
That's okay.
It's a choice. It's a choice we get to make. Yeah. Now, I would also say, if you want to retire at 50, don't become a doctor. Not that you can't. Maybe
it's a great point.
But it's not, if you're incurring $250,000 in loans for med school and then trying to pay that down and save all that money just to be done 15 years after. I mean, it's possible. It's just the odds of there's other ways to make enough money to put it aside and not have that big bill that are dwarfing you. Like, it's just, the break even, you just finished paying off your loan and now you can have the ability to earn this higher income. Maybe you want to do it for longer.
And I know we haven't visited on the podcast in a while, Corey, but you know that there's an illustration out there of let's say somebody max funds an IRA for 8 years. So 20 to 28, and then they never do it again. And then somebody starts at age 29 and saves every year all the way to 65. And the person that started earlier has more money. So not only I just had never thought of that before, Corey, but what a key point.
And
if you want to retire, you want to retire at 50, doctor's probably not the way to do it, because you're going to spend the 10 years of some of the most important earning years at the beginning. You're going to be actually outlaying money. You won't be investing it. And then on top of it, you're going to go into the marketplace with this deep debt burden. And one thing, at least I've noticed for many physicians, correct me if I'm wrong, is that let's say an executive starts making $350 a year. You kind of picture their career is going to be, they're going to make more. But when a doctor comes out making $350 a year, it's not like they're going to be making $800 in 2 years unless they become an owner or something else. But as an employee, they're not going to climb like, say, a salesperson would.
Now, I will say that anesthesia is probably one of the better specialties to pick, because you come out
really relaxed. Really relaxed. Oh, no?
Well, think about a cardiac surgeon. If you think about a doctor that could be making $1 million, $2 million a year, heart surgeon's one that you think about, but they have to train for a long time. And so, so it's kind of a tough break even schedule. You're training for that much longer. So then you've got to come out and you've got to make all that money, save a bunch there. And frankly, it's harder as a cardiac surgeon to save a bigger percentage of your income because everyone expects you to have the nice car and the nice house. There's a lot of that lifestyle pressure.
It's what
anesthesia, you can kind of run under the radar a little bit more, I think.
Dr. Thomas Stanley talks about it in the book, Stop Acting Rich and Start Living Like a Real Millionaire, is that doctors have some of the highest social pressure around spending of any occupation. Maybe a close second would be most financial advisors we run into.
Right. And this doctor is feeling a lot of spending pressure because she's going to pay for her wedding. She's probably got some family expectations around that. Now, also, if she wants to retire at 50, a 401k is the worst place to put most of your money.
401k and Roth.
And a Roth.
And the HSA.
No,
HSA can't be accessed till 65.
But a Roth, after you've had it for 5 years, you can get your principal out before 59 and a half. So that's
that's
like
right.
half,
yep. Good point.
You can't get all of it, the growth, but a 401k, unless it's a Roth 401k, maybe it just locks it up too much. So we like the brokerage account piece, but
and I also like this, when one of the advisors injecting some realism, and this is real, that achieving that independence most likely requires saving between 50 and 60% of their income. And the thing is, we were talking about before we came on air, it doesn't matter how much money you make. You could be making $4 million a year. And we tend to float up our lifestyle based upon the amount of room our income affords us. And as a result, no matter how much money you make, it's really hard, especially after paying taxes, to then save 50% is like out of reach for a lot of people.
I love this quote from Lyman just a little bit further, the advisor. It requires saving as much as possible and spending as little as possible and doing both of these as soon as possible.
I love that too.
That's incredible.
That is a great tattoo.
Yes. Yeah. Well, or you could just tattoo the letters FIRE on your arm, which is the Financial Independence Retire Early movement, which is really this is what I feel like millennials are saying. I want the benefits of this FIRE movement without the hard work and sacrifice of this FIRE movement. That's what this article is telling me. And like FIRE or don't like FIRE, I appreciate what they're after. I appreciate the mechanics of it and the folks that works for them. I like going out to nice restaurants too much. It's just a thing that I love, and spending that money on it. Probably I'm not going to do the work for 5 years and then, get $1 million portfolio and then live off of $40,000 a year for the rest of my life. That's just not me. I am working towards financial independence to just know what that track is. And I know, but that's just good for where I'm at. And I don't have anything bad to say about the FIRE movement. I just get what they're after. But I do feel like this article is trying to water that down.
Yeah, I got to say that since we have the benefit, Corey, of being offended in our society on the behalf of somebody else, I'm going to do that. The idea, if you're a FIRE movement person, you would get a little vomit in your throat over the idea, because most FIRE movement folks, when you watch online, these are folks that make 80, 100 a year, and they're still saving 40. It's amazing.
Right.
And it takes a lot of effort and concentration for them to do that, and focus or concentration. And if you think about the word concentrate, it is removing all diluting factors. Mm-hmm. So if what you're going to do is tilt into FIRE, that is used cars. That is keeping an iPhone until it dies. Think about it, that's also still living a pretty dang good lifestyle. That doesn't need to be. If you're making $350 a year, and I don't know if she has a spouse that works, but if you're making $350 a year, you can still live a pretty good lifestyle. But the key and the difficulty, and this is where FIRE people make their ground, is that she could live and work and still have a lifestyle twice as good as the average American family making $45,000 a year. but she would be living a lifestyle a fraction of the people she spends time around. And most people can't do it because of lifestyle addiction,
right.
Which you're seeing
and
in some of this.
Here, her quote, it's challenging to save 50% of her salary, even though she's not a big spender, which that's relative. That's a relative, not a big spender. I would have to give up vacations and the things that are splurgy, like eating in finer restaurants or flying to New Jersey to see my family at the drop of a hat. And she said, adding,
wait. I want to give a preview to it before you say it.
Yeah.
And here comes the entitled millennial line. Go ahead, Corey.
Adding that she could save $3,000 a month if not for her loan obligations, except the loan obligation is what gave her the increased earning potential in the first place.
That's like a construction company buying an excavator, paying $3,000 a month for it. They make $500,000 a year owning that excavator, and they're like, "Why? If it weren't for this dang loan payment, I'd be making more money."
Really? It's like, no, and so she's definitely working at a for-profit hospital because there's no talk about student loan forgiveness. So, that is one way that a doctor could get out pretty well. Some of your years of residency count toward those 10 years of payments. The rest of your working years, you're paying income-based payments, and after 10 years, your loan's paid off, however much it was. So, so that's one way if you're going to be a doctor and trying to do this is get on a nonprofit hospital, and that'll help.
Which wouldn't, I know we're talking a little bit here out of turn, and it's not unlike me to take you in a different direction.
It's true.
But
it's very true.
Wouldn't that, a lot of those nonprofit organizations that you can work for you work for them for 10 years and your student loans are paid for you, aren't a lot of them in lower cost of living places too?
I mean, they're here in Chicago, they could be anywhere. So it doesn't necessarily mean, but here's where I'll take you in a different place than you were going, is that doctors tend to make the same almost anywhere you go, actually sometimes more in lower cost of living.
You've shared that which, by the way, if you guys listening don't know, Corey works with 95% of all of our physician clients. His wife is a doctor. He really understands this market well. So that's why if you guys notice the way we're swinging back and forth with some of this, because Corey knows this industry and these people really, really well. But that would be you could go move to a place where, you could be living off 30% of your income and still be the big dog in town. Yeah.
Exactly right. And now with post-COVID, and we're not really post-COVID, but you know what I mean.
Yes, we are.
A lot more people are remote working.
Should I announce we're done with it today?
Yeah.
As of the announcing of this podcast? Do you think?
Yeah,
do you think? Next one?
So, I'm sorry I said anything. So, you could choose to live somewhere with a lot lower cost of living and have the same job. A lot more people have that ability now. And so this is what we're talking about, actually saying, okay, I'm going to go from my $800 or $900 or $1 million house here in this expensive suburb and go move somewhere rural and buy a $200,000, $300,000 house that's just as big, maybe not quite as up to date, and cash out some money and put that towards the future, spend less on my house, spend less on my car. There's all kinds of ways to do it. There's no problem with affording it, except the problem of wanting to make those decisions. Mm-hmm. It's a blank slate for everybody. And so just be clear on what it is you want. Human life, all suffering comes from having what you don't want or not wanting what you have. That's all suffering. And then this is what I hear from this article is folks aren't just, they're kind of millennials especially kind of living between two poles and not wanting to commit fully in one direction or the other and wanting the benefits of both. And we just got to cut that out.
I've got a little request from Miranda here. Hopefully she's all tuned in. Miranda, could you look up, I did a podcast some time ago that you probably have to find on the website called Watch What You Say. It Could Cost You Millions. Because it really ties in for those of you who are physicians or people, period, who go through a period of time where they're struggling. Happens with a lot of business owners. And then all of a sudden, boom, income goes way up. It's just very predictable for doctors. But the reason I bring it up is oftentimes in those struggle periods, it's so easy to say to yourself when it's hard, or to say to a spouse, it's like, I know it's tough that we have to budget and you can't get but I'm telling you, when we get through this, honey, I'm going to buy an Escalade for the family, or we're going to get that big house on the hill, or we're going to do whatever, instead of setting a strategy before your income goes up, that when our income goes up, we're going to make this incremental increase in lifestyle and be able to save like champs, because then you get the reward of having a little bit better lifestyle, but then you also get the real benefit of setting aside a lot of money. And as soon as Miranda writes back to me and lets me know what episode that is, I'll let you guys know. If not, it'll be in the show notes. She'll put it there after.
Oh, go ahead.
I just like this next one. It kind of speaks to what we talked to. The 2022 Retirement Insight Survey from TIA revealed similar views, with 31% of people from 30 to 39 indicating they have an above average level of confidence in their ability to plan for retirement, which if this show has taught you guys anything before, people's subjective opinion about their capacity to act effectively is really not good.
What is it, like 90% of people rate themselves above average in driving skills?
Yes.
Almost half of you are wrong.
That's right. Young millennials, those 25 to 29, are the most assured. 40% say they have an above average level of confidence in their ability to plan. Now, quick question, Corey. I didn't prepare you for this. But of people from the age of 25 to 40, what percentage of them were highly competent in their ability to do planning without any professional? Like they could just do it on their own, and they could probably end up, maybe it could have been better, more optimized if they worked with someone like you. But what would your guess be where somebody shows up, you're like, dang, that person really knows their stuff about money, and I'll help them, but they don't need me? Because I have my guess. Yeah, I was going to go 7. Like, I think it's even less than 10. Especially when we're talking under the age of 40. They just haven't had enough time. And definitely people age 25 to 29 barely know how to plan a vacation. And if you're a 25 to 29-year-old that knows how to plan a vacation, don't take offense at what I said. Just suck it up and realize you're one of them who can. Congratulations. And then don't send me angry emails.
Think about the person we're talking about is that friend of yours that kind of annoys you with how they nerd out around money, and they're always talking about this article they read or that article, and they can rattle off the top 5 things you should do to get ready for retirement, and they maybe don't spend as much money as everyone else. Maybe they got a little bit of a reputation as a tightwad. Like, that's the person we're talking about. We meet them. About half of them or more don't become our clients. Some of them are our clients, not because they have a whole bunch of knowledge and they just want to tune up that little bit more and get that little bit extra edge.
Or as I would say, one of our most competent clients at Sound Financial Group is a CPA. He's brilliant, etc. And one of the things he said to me is, you're my internal control. Same term they use in corporate finance to make sure mistakes don't happen because of emotion or negligence. That's what I am to them. Now, I want to make one more point before we wrap here today, Corey, and that is this little segment right here. When she says, I don't want to get caught up in save, and then retire at 65. Now, number one, just pause there for a second. If you really save a lot, you're going to retire at 50. Meaning,
what?
You're going to retire at 50 if you save. You won't have to wait to 65. So that's just flawed thinking right there. Just want to make that point. But she's seen too many people put their lives on hold until they retire, only become ill or have their spouse die. Now, I don't think that happens. That's not an often occurrence. I hear people say that, and you might know one person out of the thousands of people you know that's happened to, and I guarantee you they were older than you, which means that lifestyles we have today around health and our knowledge of what to put in our bodies and how to care for ourselves is so much better than the people that were 40 years older than us. And people will make decisions that drive them to the ground financially based upon this totally false narrative That, I don't want to be that person that just saves up a bunch of money and then I get 65 and I die right away. That does happen. But it doesn't happen often enough that you should make your plans right. You know what happens to 99.9% of people? Not 99.99, but a lot of people, the more likely outcome. It's why I get a little tuned up at preppers sometimes, of which I am one, the joke is you're planning for the 0.0000001% likelihood of a zombie apocalypse, but you're not planning for the 95% likelihood you're going to make it to age 65 and spend the rest of your life in poverty, and yet you're buying more prepackaged food. Like, I get the prepackaged food, but then I make different lifestyle decisions that allow me to save an obscene amount of my income.
And we don't disagree with the sentiment that woman has, and this is a different person than the doctor at this point, where like the financial industry does want you to defer a bunch of your life for later because they get to have this growing amount of money this whole time that they're managing, and you're not getting a lot of use out of it. So we, Sound Financial Group, we're not about a life deferred. We're about what's a good life you can live now and continue to live for the rest of your life. And let's have a lot of enjoyment now. So I'm all about not deferring that to down the road, but I think it's another straw man argument where no one's asking you to do that. Right.
And it all comes back. We talk about this all the time. It comes back to your aims, right? Like for me and my family's decision comes with our aims. And everybody's aims are going to be different enough that the same advice won't work. So it's great to read articles like this to learn something, but then you have to sort what is the opinion from the fact. And then as we talked about in our one of our previous episodes, it's like, and they're still working to make money and keep you engaged in their content. Even great organizations like the Wall Street Journal, like we talked about a couple episodes ago, they're just going to be A/B testing. They're always advertising other parts of their content in there. They've got all the ads everywhere. That if what you're going to do is use media to educate yourself, you just have to do it in a discerning way. And I think listening to this podcast is just a good check periodically to let you know what to watch for when we talk about articles like this.
So info@sfgway.com. If you have any questions about anything we talked about today, we'd love to start a conversation. Or if you're working with a financial advisor, go check your math and ask those questions. Like, here's what I want to retire. What path am I on? What would I have to do to retire when I'm 50? See what they say. It could be a good start to the conversation.
And one thing I'll throw on that, do not let rate of return tamp down the seriousness of the numbers you need to take a look at. Because if we put in 10%, it's a very different set of outcomes than 7%. And doing that 6 or 7% rate of return for the sake of those projections will leave you with a surplus if things don't work, if things do better, but it'll leave you with enough if they don't do as well as we had hoped. And you might just have a lot of extra money to spend at age 48 through 50 and still hit your plan.
You're such a good point. I was going to say 6. You said 6 or 7. Like if you're planning on this retire at 50, I wouldn't use more than a 6% rate of return in those calculations, because over shorter periods of time, too many things can happen to impact your rates of return. As we're seeing now, September 2022, with the market having the lowest point it's had in a little while. So,
yep. And then just for fun, guys, we're going to ask Miranda to put in the show notes for you in case you haven't seen the article before, want to see it. When you hear us talk about it, you got to save 40 to 60%. There's an article by a guy named Mr. Money Mustache. It's one of the most popular articles of finance on the internet, and it's called The Shockingly Simple Math of Being Able to Retire Early. And it'll walk you right through, and it gives just some good pointers that if you wanted to take on the FIRE movement, or you wanted to just ridiculously increase your savings and be told, like that's like basically today being punk rock is being super responsible financially.
Right.
Like used to be punk rock was like have mohawk, all that. No, I drive a Ford Explorer that looks like it's, I don't know, like close to the Crusher. Not quite. It still has most of its original paint, but it's meant to be towed behind the RV. I don't go anywhere most of the time, so I drive a toaster because all I needed to do is make toast. Warmth in the winter is nice. That's it. That's all I care about. That is counterculture now. And it's hard to do, especially if you're in the top 1% income brackets. For those of you considering taking it on, or you're struggling through it despite the social pressure, just from Corey and I, congratulations. Stick with it. You will have wildly different outcomes from your peers that just put 10% in their 401k. But unfortunately, you'll be able to do some really cool things in your old age. They won't. So with that, Corey, you ready to say goodbye to everybody?
Ready to say goodbye. SSG family, thanks for tuning in. And
we love you guys.
As always, we hope this has contributed to you being able to design and build a good life.